The 2020 hurricane season didn't sneak up on anyone as the eyes of the weather world waited for the storms to pop. And boy, did they.
Through September, we'd had 23 storms, which is way above average, even above 2005 levels. But we'd only had 2 major hurricanes. So there was a lot of talk, well, there's been a lot of quantity, but not much quality. Well, since October 1st, we've had 7 more storms. 4 of those hit major hurricane. We almost had a 5th with Zeta. It was really close, just below it was 110 miles an hour. It needs to be 111. So we almost had 5 major hurricanes. We had 4. The most we had in any prior October and November was 2.
That's Phil Klotzbach, a research scientist in the Department of Atmospheric Science at Colorado State University. Perhaps the most prolific tweeter in the tropical weather world, Klotzbach and his team at CSU release a seasonal forecast each year with a breakdown of expectations, number of storms, hurricanes, major hurricanes, and more. Going into a year with comparisons to the historic 2005 season, most of the indicators Klotzbach measures confirmed his thoughts about the season ahead.
There's clues. The atmosphere provides clues. The ocean provides clues. There's precursor signals that kind of basically load the dice to an above average season or below average season. In June and July, normally storm activity then doesn't really tell you that much about the rest of the season. But if you get storm activity in the deep tropics, so say south in the actual tropics, so south of 23.5 north, that's typically a harbinger of a very active season.
Before Category 1 Hurricane Hannah, the Atlantic saw 7 tropical storms, 2 of which formed in the deep tropics, Tropical Storms Cristobal and Gonzalo. We had to wait until August for the first major hurricane, that's Category 3 and above, for Category 4 Hurricane Laura. From there, things really started to ramp up.
We almost had 5 major hurricanes. We had 4. The most we had in any prior October and November was 2. So we broke that record by a long shot, and just, the storms seemingly as we went later and later in the season, they got stronger and stronger, with Eta reaching Cat 4, and then we had Iota, which actually did hit a Category 5, but the latest Category 5 in the Atlantic on record.
Measuring storms and identifying their quality is done through a metric called ACE, Accumulated Cyclone Energy. While ACE doesn't reveal everything there is to know about a storm, it tells forecasters like Klotzbach a lot about how powerful they really are.
That's an index that takes into account the frequency, but especially the intensity and the duration of storms. So storms that are weak and short-lived generate very little ACE. Storms that are strong and long-lived generate tremendous amounts of ACE.
If there was a silver lining to this season, that's it. It's the lack of quality versus the quantity of storms we saw.
This year we didn't actually have one huge ACE generator because none of the storms that were particularly strong were very long-lasting. However, if you go back to like 2017, Hurricane Irma, which I'm sure most people remember, extremely long-lived, very intense, of Category 5 for a couple of days. That storm generated a tremendous amount of ACE. This year we just had so many dang storms that the ACE values did get really high, but that's just because we had so much quantity, and then we did, especially late in the season, also have, even though they weren't super long-lived, very intense storms. And the intense storms, even if they are short-lived, do generate reasonable amounts of ACE fairly quickly.
As tropical activity finally slows down, looking ahead to 2021 has already begun. But one of the biggest takeaways from this season wasn't the record number of storms, nor the timing of them, but the way the storms blew up.
ACE was a lot higher in 2005 than this year. We had 4 Category 5 hurricanes. Thankfully none of the storms this year are going to be as cataclysmic as Katrina was in 2005, but this thing about 2005 is even Katrina was weakening as it approached the coast. So this year we had so many storms rapidly intensifying up to or almost up to the point of landfall. And even if you look at those last 2 storms that went into Nicaragua, they weren't intensifying right up to the point of landfall, but within about 12 hours of landfall, they were going up quickly. So you had all these storms blowing up right on the doorstep of land. And typically some storms obviously land's what kills them, but a lot of times what kind of knocks the storms down as they encounter dry air, they encounter shear, and that's kind of what kills the storm. This year it was like all these storms were all systems go, and what basically caused the storm not to strengthen anymore was it hit land.
In Orlando, Florida, for MyRadar, I'm Mike Linden.
Follow MyRadar on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Download MyRadar on iOS, Android, Amazon Alexa, Xbox, and Windows.